It's so great to have you guys here. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to another Transform webinar series by iCentra. And there is no other host but myself. I have to host this myself because my friends, my professional colleagues from across the world are joining us as usual today. But this set of ladies are very, very dear to my heart. These are global speakers that we've met at different stages. And I'm so pleased to drive this conversation today. So, on behalf of
Mhm.
iCentra, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today. I'm still going to reel out a few of their profiles. However, trust me, if we start, going deep into their profiles, we'll probably not do anything else today. So let me welcome you to this webinar today. We're delighted to have a distinguished audience of professionals, leaders, and transformation experts in the room and practitioners from across industries. A little bit of background to if you're joining us for the first time for the Transform webinar, it's part of iCentra's commitment to advancing thought leadership and practical conversation around transformation, governance, execution, and excellence. And my name is Taufik, and I happen to be the CEO of iCentra, and I'll be your host for today. Um, Today's session is focused on continuous transformation, and just a little bit of context. The webinar topic is continuous transformation, building organizations that adapt, performs, and thrive. Just a background, like I said, a context. As we know, organizations and the world itself today face increasing volatile um, situations, and the current environment, characterized by rapid technological change, evolving customer expectation, workforce disruption, emerging risk, and uncertain economy economic uncertainties. But despite significant investment in transformation initiatives, many organizations, still struggle to sustain outcome beyond the life of individual projects and programs. And it's a beautiful thing that we actually have not just transformation experts in the house, we also have AI leaders, we also have project programs and portfolio professionals in the room. So the challenge is not lack of transformation activity or activities that it may be. The challenge is the absence of transformation capability. Now, we've seen that organization, you know, embark on different transformation initiatives, but is it a capability within the organization or does it end after a transformation initiative? So organization must move beyond periodic and episodic transformation efforts and develop the capability to continuously adapt, align, execute, and evolve. This webinar explores how organizations can build transformation into their operating model and create the conditions for sustained performance. At iCentra, we have come up with something that we call continuous transformation, which also is a tool, we believe is a tool for sustained performance. So our theme and the focus today, is for us to move from transformation initiatives to capabilities. So we'll explore why transformation initiatives often fail to sustain the results, the concept of continuous transformation itself, and governance-led execution as a transformation enabler, workforce capability as strategic assets, building adaptable and adaptive, resilient organization, and designing operating models for sustained performance. So, to help us with this conversation today, like I said, we have an international panel of highly, highly experienced professionals who, over the next 90 minutes, we're going to be exploring key insights and framework related to this topic, practical perspectives from them, and interactive Q&As. So we encourage you to participate by actively sharing your questions in the chat. And letting us know. I've seen we have people from all over the world, from Montreal. We have people from Nigeria. So Montreal, who is following who from Montreal here? So just so that you know, Olivia is a fellow Texan. So she's based out of Austin, and we have Estelle. No, no, no. So we have three Texans on the call today versus one uh, one breeds. So it's not a war, it's not a challenge, but we're still gonna. So let me quickly introduce Olivia as I continue the conversation. Olivia Montgomery, please, if I pronounce that wrongly, is a consultant, researcher, and former Gartner analyst. I'm sure you all are very, very familiar with Gartner, global leader in research. And she helps organizations make better decisions about technology, AI, organizational change, combining deep research with hands-on implementation experience. She translates complex technology trends into practical strategies for business leaders. Her insights have been featured in Bloomberg, Forbes, IT Brew, CIO Dive, Tech Republic, and PMI's Pulse of Profession, which is a top platform. Or these are top platforms to be featured in. So I don't envy you, Olivia. And she's a sought after speaker on AI adoption, leadership, and digital transformation. So just so that you know, we have somebody very, very capable to speak to the topic. The next stop for me, I go to the UK. Um, and introduce Estelle, who is a strategic program governance and transformation advisor and the founder of Atrion Insights. Estelle is a project professional and strategic program governance expert with international experience leading complex transformation, technology, infrastructure, and risk initiatives. As a founder at um, Ethereum Insights, she helps organizations strengthen governance, strategic execution, and leadership decision making in environments shaped by AI disruption um, and continuous change. Now, something is common with these ladies before I introduce Lola. Um, our work focuses on building resilient operating models that drives long-term value, performance, and organizational agility. Lola Day, hmm, last but not the least, we call her AI Queen. Lola is a strategist, best-selling author, international keynote speaker, and CEO of Nat AI and Vibe Code Africa, a program that I've been privileged to be part of in Nigeria and in Dallas, Texas here as well. She's also a Texan and a Nigerian, so we share two things in common. Recognized among the top 75 AI innovators in Dallas, just so that you know, she's just one hour away from me whenever I'm in Texas. So we're both not only Texan, but also live in Dallas, DFW area together. She has trained over 2,500 professionals and advised organizations across US, Africa, and beyond on practical AI adoption, automation, digital transformation, through executive coaching, corporate training, keynotes, presentation. She keeps leaders and teams to harness AI in innovation, AI for innovation, productivity, and sustainability. So, having said all of this, you would agree with me that we have a very brilliant and capable panel to have a conversation around this. So, I haven't done the speaker's introduction. Um, I would just start having conversation with them now. So the way these goes where I have I have each speaker will speak for at least maybe about 10 minutes to discuss their perspectives about the topic that we're doing today before we start having the Q&A. So my first I'll invite the first speaker, Olivia, to set the tone about the topic that and the theme that we're trashing out today. Olivia, you have the floor.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And I know we've got a lot of tips and insights for you from a lot of different perspectives. And I'm really excited to share them and hear from the other speakers as well. So a big part of continuous transformation to me is that it's just so needed and required right now. So markets, technology, customer expectations, workforce expectations, they're changing too quickly for transformation to be treated as a periodic event, as it often is. So organizations are really good at launching transformation initiatives and transformation projects and programs. But the differentiator right now is building the capability to continuously align, learn, and execute on the changing strategy. And I'm really excited to be here today.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Olivia. Estelle?
Hi everyone, and thank you as well for having me today. I'm as well overexcited to share this perspective because I think we're entering the transformation volatility right now, and I think it is really important that we have this different perspective shared between us. For me, well, I'm coming with a of exploration, I would say. So through Ethereum Insight, I've been focusing on the climate change, geopolitical aspect, and anything in relation to systemic risk. So all of this kind of together being part of the transformation program. And this has been driven by, my experience through major infrastructure projects. So yes, over excited to share different views here.
Thank you so very much. And Lola. Oh, okay. So we wait while you figure that out. I go back to Olivia. Today's discussion is centered around a fundamental shift in thinking. For decades, organizations have treated transformation as an initiative. So, should leaders now begin to think about transformation as a permanent organizational capability? Your thoughts?
I think absolutely. I think the organizations that understand that the world always changes. This AI, I think, is a very important catalyst for change right now, but it's not the first catalyst that we've seen. It's just one of the loudest and biggest that we've had. But continuously, we've seen companies that fail to understand that continuous transformation is needed. They tend to fail. It's definitely like an adapt or die out there. We all know of some of the big companies, Nokia, unfortunately, kind of stuck to their guns and kept running what they knew their bread and butter programs and initiatives, and they did fall behind and lost market share. We've seen this with like Blockbuster video rental that was really popular in the United States a few decades ago. There's a ton of stories, and the common thread is the companies just want to stick with their bread and butter and what's working well while the world around them is changing and customer needs are changing and technology is changing. So you have to be able to be looking forward, updating your strategy, updating your capabilities, and really teaching people how to absorb change daily so that when you do announce a new strategy or a shift in how you're working, everybody's like, okay, that's, we can take that and we know how to reprioritize. We know, the exercises that are needed to turn the strategy into the daily work. We're ready to go. And those are the businesses that continue to thrive long term and will continue to do so even after the AI revolution.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for that. I guess Lola is back, right?
Yes, if you can hear
Oh,
me.
beautiful. So you can quickly do your background introduction and also speak to this question about should organization begin to think about transformation as a permanent organizational capability. So you have the floor.
Okay. All right. So I come from the world of AI, which is basically where, when we talk about transformation today, that's where most people think about how do I become an AI organization, or even as an individual, how as an individual can I transform my life with AI? How can I make more money? How can I grow my business? How can I start a business? Um, and when we do that, when we look at the organizational standpoint, I have worked in corporate for a little bit under a decade. When we talk about transformation, it's mostly like a training. So think about it like it's a wedding. We have this big event, and everybody gathers together, and we train 1,000 people, and we put the stats and present it to leadership, and we're all excited that we trained 1,000 people. But did that actually do anything for the organization? Did that actually change anybody? Did somebody's
Mm,
method of working actually change? And so when we start talking about transformation as a permanent capability, going back to my wedding analogy, we have to separate ourselves from just thinking about the event to thinking about what happens after the event. So,
events, yeah.
what happens after the training? What happens when everything goes back to normal, right? Like with a wedding, the marriage is the point. We spend thousands of dollars, getting a pretty dress and a pretty cake and what have you, but we don't think about the forever after the wedding day. And so that's when we think about transformation as a permanent capability, it comes from the standpoint of not just what happens during the transformation session or the training session, but what happens after. And I think what happens after is
Mm,
influenced by the confidence, by human confidence. How much confidence were we able to instill in the people that we're trying to train? Because transformation is not about the words or the conversations that happen within the organization. It's about the people being changed because the people run the organization. So, how much confidence were you able to instill in the people who are supposed to be the catalysts of the organization?
absolutely, absolutely. Lola, I'll say I just picked out three things from what you said. At the end of the day, um, transformation should not just be an initiative. It is about what happens after the initiative. But again, in people, have you built confidence, competence, and change? So let's continue the conversation. And I think this is gonna be very, very interesting. Let's get the insight from the lady from the UK, uh, Estelle.
Yes. Um, for me, I think we need to look at continuous transformation, more like looking at as a shift. So we used to have transformation as an event, so a specific project, but now we need to look at transformation as part of an organizational capability. And I think that's what we kind of joining all our voices here. I think in the past, organization used to treat transformation as something very specific that happened. So we looked through a defined program, we looked at a specific beginning, we deliver a plan and we have an end date. So typical program portfolio management. Right, but that structure, well, we don't want to scrap that structure because, of course, that structure is still useful, but it's no longer enough. And I think today organization are dealing with conditions, they are keep changing. So we know we have technology acceleration, AI adoption, we have climate pressure, regulations, economic uncertainty, workforce changing, and more form of risks as well that we need to bring into the fore, right? And the real questions for me then become, so how does an organization keep adapting while we need to stay aligned with purpose and the value and performance, right? And I'm looking as well where the governance and the execution needs to work together, and what does can bring to our leaders. We need to have those clarity for the leaders. We need to have those leaders that are becoming more accountable and have decision confidence. And I think this is the turning point, isn't it? When you have the execution turning into strategy, and then that brings, you know, momentum and movement. And obviously, we need to have your organization a learning organization. And when you have all that connected, well, obviously, transformation becomes much more than a project, and it becomes part of how the organization is thinking, decide, adapt, and perform.
Wow, wow, Estelle, that's very insightful. So transformation goes beyond being a project. It becomes the way of thinking and the way of working of an organization. And they think transformation, they know that, hey, something is going to happen. The same way we had the concept of continuous improvement over the years. So we need to understand that the world that we're living in right now, if it's not disrupted by US-Iran war, it's going to be disrupted by AI, and it's going to be disrupted by market forces. So we need to, you know, increase that capability within the organizations to know that our resting place, well, as a matter of fact, we don't even have a resting place. So I hear you talk about, you know, for at a leadership level, we should have alignment of governance and execution, which should ultimately lead to continuous momentum. Thank you so very much, Estelle. So, wow, this is becoming very interesting already. So I'll go back to Texas, and I'll go speak to my neighbor Olivia, um, and ask more, glean more insights on continuous transformation perspective. So, in your opinion, why do so many transformation initiatives fail to sustain performance beyond the life of the program?
Yeah, so I've seen three common causes, and if one of these exists, it's an issue, and if more or any combo exists, it's a big issue. So break them down. So the first one is that leaders underestimate the amount of organizational learning that's required to turn their strategy into execution. So this aligns with everything that we've already been saying, and following Lola's analogy that I love is like announcing your strategy takes a day. The wedding is a big party. You throw the announcement, you share your new goals, you share your new KPIs, and announcing it takes a day. But then helping hundreds, thousands of people shift their day-to-day work, how they make decisions, and how they prioritize what they decide to prioritize in their day-to-day work takes months. And too often leaders are just underestimating, they're ready to go. They've communicated, they've done all of their, lead up work, and they're ready to start seeing people execute on it. And it just takes a lot longer, especially, the lower that your organizational learning capabilities are, the slower that's going to be. The second one I have is that organizations overinvest in transformation programs, just like Estelle was saying. We'll run a project, we'll run a program or a transformation initiative, but they're not spending enough time building the capabilities that allow people to adapt repeatedly. So this means skills like decision making, experimentation, safe experimentation, reprioritizing your work, and cross-team teamwork. All of those are capabilities that enable executional change and operational change to get to the new strategy. And then the third one we see is that leaders stop communicating too early. So by the time an executive is blue in the face and feels that they can't communicate the strategy anymore, that's when a lot of employees are hearing it for the first time. And that can be an uncomfortable truth, but it's the reality of work and how it is. And so I highly recommend that you have to over communicate. Never stop communicating the strategy, the vision, how we're competing in the space, because it's sustained performance requires sustained clarity.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Olivia. I just need to give you a clap for it. So, Olivia, I'm wondering why we did not write my book together, because it looked like you just peeped into my upcoming book, which is a prelude into continuous transformation. And I call it the architecture of enterprise alignments. And where does this alignment fall? Strategy, which I call the portfolio; projects, which is the execution capability; people, we who are the drivers of the transformation; and products, which is the value that's you get out you know um, of the transformation exercise that needs to be sustained over time. And you've just touched on each one of them. I hear you talk about leadership communication, which is required, to sustain, the momentum. So this is absolutely brilliant. And, let me just use the opportunity to go into because you've spoken about leadership. Okay, what does continuous transformation mean in practical terms for organizational leadership? Let's trash leadership here. We're in the room.
Yeah, so in practical terms, continuous transformation means building an organization that continuously pursue new opportunities, improve how it operates, and evolve as conditions change. So transformation becomes a capability when it's embedded in daily decision making, daily resource allocation, and the day-to-day operations of the teams across the org. So there's a couple of things that I look for to see where a company is at for this. So a few signs are: is strategy understood across the organization, bottom to top? And then are decisions happening close to the work? As close to the work as possible, not in boardrooms, not in steering committees. Are key decisions being made in the room where the people who are executing the work are? Another one is, do teams know how to experiment safely? So a culture of experimentation, knowing how to run effective pilots, knowing how to learn and execute and test and get feedback and run experiments safely. I think a lot of times we overestimate maybe how a team can experiment and the level of psychological safety that they're provided so that they can experiment. That's a pretty key one. I need to see that teams know how to experiment and are excited about it because they're confident in doing so. Another sign is that leaders are creating visibility, they're creating accountability, and they're helping informed decision making. So they're not making every decision themselves, but they're creating the visibility into the progress, what other teams are working on, lessons learned across the org as the transformation goes. They're driving accountability as well. That is the best role a leader can take to sustain transformation. And then the last one is like feedback moves quickly across teams. So I'm talking about decisions happening close to the work and teams experimenting safely, but all of that also requires a lot of cross communication. And so feedback loops need to be continuous, they need to be insightful and very specific and timely. So I've got kind of a simple test, like when I first, start working with a company, or I am evaluating the root cause issues of, why they've stalled out. I tend to look at, can people make decisions that align with the strategy when leadership's not in the room? And that's a lot harder and sometimes very uncomfortable for leaders, but it's critical because you can't always be in the room and you shouldn't need to always be in the room. The teams need clarity, structure, and a safety, psychological safety, so that when you're not there, when they're making decisions, everything that they're doing is aligned with your strategy.
So let me just do a quick recap of this, because my note is actually getting filled. And actually, I feel like going back to my book and updating it here, right? but it's ready for, it's actually ready for publishing, right? So the questions you've asked, and the signs that shows us that transformation is weak is that this set of question is strategy permeating through the organization equally, and the communication of it, yeah, that right, and communication is decision making happening closer to where work is done, which is very, very, very key, and speaks to people and the capability within the organization. Are teams experimenting, safely? Is there autonomy for the team? And lastly, yeah, I think those are the ones that, and also, um, earlier on we spoke about, underestimation of learning required for transformation to happen within the organization. But I still have the notes, but I'll come back to you. So let me quickly go over to the UK and speak to Estelle. Estelle, what role does governance play in sustaining transformation, in your view and your experience?
Right. For me, governance obviously is critical because it's helping and keeping basically the transformation connected into the strategy and the intent, right? Any value and that we are willing to deliver, and obviously close to reality. So our executive need to understand that launching a transformation is not only launching an initiative. It need to be sustainable, and it need to sustain alignment with the different organizations. And as we keep mentioning, the conditions are changing fast. The world is changing by the minute as we speak, and it is important that governance provide basically the structure to that specific alignment within the organization. When you look at governance in particular, you understand that governance helps our leader to answer very specific questions. So I've got 5 questions for you. So one is, are we still aligned to the strategy and the strategic intent? Are we creating any value that we expected? Because obviously we have a lot of expectations when we are setting up the transformation program. Looking at, again, the risk aspect, but not only, we need as well to look at our assumptions, and are all different aspects linked to our external conditions, and how these are evolving as the world is changing around us, right? Then we need to look at the right decisions, and are they made at the right level? Because you mentioned, Olivia mentioned, the different, the communication aspect. And I think, again, when you're in the boardroom, rather than being part of the delivery side, is understandable that there are some disconnectivity. But then also, we need to look as well as the capabilities, and we discussed about that point as well. Are the capability being part of that transformation program able to sustain the change beyond the program? And we mentioned that with the wedding, analogy, which is absolutely fantastic, right? And then when you see that governance, is able to adapt and is becoming an adaptive capability, when this is kind of reinforcing, the aspect of that transformation program. And then we looked as well at organization. Are they remaining coherent while they are evolving? Because it's another part, isn't it? You can evolve fast with the world, but does that thing still makes sense to have the same identity as we have before the transformation program? So I think is another aspect that we need to look at. And so while we give the leaders the visibility, the discipline, obviously, and the confidence that transformation is moving to the right direction, well, then this is becoming effective governance. And again, effective governance is not slowing down transformation, but is strengthening the transformation by bringing quality of decisions and protecting the organization from drifting from the intent, isn't it? So that's the important part. And finally, I think I would like to say that governance should be viewed more as not as the opposite as transformation, but more as something that enable and allow transformation to sustain, you know, the identity and the performance of the organization as it evolved.
Thank you so very much, Estelle. I'm not going to do a recap of yours right now. I'll need to go into to speak to Lola. Lola would be jumping off the call by in another 20 minutes. So I need to,
Sure.
take very good advantage of our presence here. It seems your wedding analogy is actually sparking conversation within the room right now. So you have the floor, Lola. Let me, you've been very big on capability development, workforce capability development, learning and all of that. And, that is, it's by default that I'm going to be asking you questions or having conversation or getting your insights with regards to workforce capability. Why is workforce capability often overlooked in transformation efforts? That is number one. Then second question is, how can organizations move beyond training to building true capabilities?
Okay. So, as you said, I am a trainer. I train people on AI. And one of the most challenging parts of my job is when you are training a group of people. I had a cohort 2 weeks ago that had almost 200 people in the room. You have to slow down to make sure everyone follows along. Now, this is true in an organization if you truly want to transform the organization. Because back to what everyone has been saying, Olivia has said it, Estelle has said it, that when you are doing transformation, you have to think of the whole and not just the leader and not just the leadership or the boardroom. You have to think of the people who are actually doing the work, because that's where the needle shifts. If you cannot, why? So the answer to the question, why is capability often overlooked, is because it is stressful. It is the real work. It is easier for, and as you climb up the corporate ladder, you begin to see that your work shifts from your hands to your mind. So most of the times you're in meetings, you're talking, but you're no longer doing. You're the one making the decisions, but you're no longer doing. And the people who are actually doing are the ones who need this transformation. But because there's that gap, so back to what Olivia said, because there's that gap between the boardroom and those who are doing the work, it's like, oh, we understand it. We understand it, and it's easy for us to implement because most of the things we have to do. And this is like I want to say a spotlight to every leader here to think about, how do you relate to the people who are working for you? Because we understand it, we know our goal, we know, okay, we have to implement AI here, 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 and here. Yeah, tell them to do it. And then we leave it there. So that's where that's why it's overlooked, because the leaders are not feeling the brunt of it, and we're outsourcing that to the group of people who actually carry the work. So that's number one. Now, how can we flip this? I would say, especially, and pardon my bias to AI, that's just what I eat, drink, sleep, wake up to, and everything. So if you want your organization to grow, if you want people to understand, you want to transform your organization, you as a leader, you need to take on the transformation and be, I won't use the word vulnerable because I feel like people will stone me, leaders will stone me using the word vulnerable here. Like, how can I be vulnerable with my staff? But be open about your own transformation journey as well. I know that a lot of organizations have office hours, and our office hours is where somebody who is supposed to be an expert is basically, you come here and I'll tell you what to do. But imagine those office hours. So we have dedicated time where we are all trying to do an AI transformation within the organization. As a leader, I'm trying to learn how to build AI agents for myself. And I encountered some stuff like when I was building my own AI agents. And then we take it to this office hours and I figured it out and I'm showing you, listen, this is what me I encountered too when I was doing this. Like this is what I encountered and this how I solved it, or I didn't even solve it by myself. Like, I'm asking my own questions. So if we help everyone, or let me start like this. If at the point of transformation or the point of introducing transformation, the work is actually carried by everyone, leaders, and workers, then we would share like a, I don't know, a camaraderie that we're all learning and growing and changing together. And then it will no longer be a report of, oh, this group or this team learned XYZ, and now we're reporting what we learned to leadership and how we've transformed and all the great things we've done. Because if we do it that way, it becomes about decks, it becomes about presentations, it becomes about metrics. But if we truly are transforming, and this is probably easier to do in smaller organizations than larger organizations, but I believe in larger organizations, when we think about the agile methodology, if you're able to section off into different groups and treat each group like its own small organization, then I think this is also implementable as well. Now, coming to the point of training, training is not just that thing that you log into somewhere for, I don't know, let's all, keep our hands down. But a lot of us have done those training things where you skip through the slides and you don't really learn anything. And if training was converted to something that looked like you leave with something, with a working deliverable. When I do my trainings, and maybe it's easier in AI or tech, I hardly ever have slides ever. Like, I don't know what I'm using slides for, because if you're training someone, you're trying to transform them into something. You're trying to take them from, I didn't know how to do this today, now I know how to do this, or I didn't know about this, now I know about this. And so it should be as hands-on as possible. In the world of AI, it is easy to do that because I'm able to say, pull up this tool, let us work step by step on how to build an AI agent, on how to create an AI automation workflow. And we're able to do it. And you leave there. In the morning, you didn't know anything about AI. By evening, you have multiple AI agents working for you that you built and that you can control. What does that do to your mindset? How transformative is that for the individual? Now, imagine we have this replicated in several individuals, and all of these individuals are working for one company. Just imagine the I don't know, the shift that would happen all around. So that's what I think about capability building and workforce training.
Well, I won't let you go. I know you have just about 10 minutes with us, so I'll bombard you with as many questions as possible as I enjoy the rest of the webinar with Olivia and Estelle. The last question I'm going to ask you: what leadership behavior? You said all of this. What leadership behavior or behaviors are required to sustain, transformation over time? And please, if you have a question for Lola, just drop it, so that we can just wrap up with our session in the next 10 minutes. So if you have a question for Lola, drop it, and she'll answer that within the next 5 minutes. So quickly, 2 minutes, what
Thank you.
leadership behavior should happen?
Thank you. Thank you so much for accommodating me and all. All right. So what should a leader do? I think you said for transformation to happen and to be continuous. I think that the leader themselves has to be a continually improving person. So you
Mm,
have a goal. Your personal mindset has to be that of continuous improvement. Whether that means by you improving on your knowledge, your personal knowledge. If you are a project management leader, You don't have to go take the next certifications. Maybe you don't need it for your, where you are. You're already at the pinnacle of the entire thing. However, there are several different ways you can read books. My brother Taufik has several books. Buy one of them. You can you can read books. You can attend webinars. You can attend events. So as a leader, first of all, you have to continuously transform, because what happens when you do is that you start to see things differently and you start to see what shouldn't be. You're always energized to make something happen. If you continually put yourself in the space or in the position of learning. So I'll say, as a leader, you have to continually maintain the position of a student. The second thing I believe is transparency. With Agile, we talk about transparency, inspection, and adaptation. I don't think that is possible if the leaders are not also transparent, inspecting, and adapting. So, as leaders, and a lot of times leadership comes with tenure. So, you probably have been doing this for 20 years, 25 years, and so much more. And of course, we know change is hard to do. But as leaders, we must find a way to be transparent in our, I get frustrated by organizations where there's a whole lot of things that happen at the leadership, point now, bar all of the, if it is classified information. But there are times where it's not necessary to have those closed door meetings and make other people feel like they're not welcome to the party. And then at the end of the day, you now have one big staff meeting, and you guys go into the world and conquer. So yeah, I believe, first of all, start with yourself. Secondly, practice what you preach. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation are things that as leaders we should actually practice.
Okay, thank you. Before I do a quick roundup of what you have said, how can somebody has dropped a message? Ade Boriot. Oh, Ade Boriot Ajilo. How can you bring transformation to a management system uh, that has caucus because you are new to the company? That's a question
That's a
for
good
you, and I
question.
think it reinforces what you've just been talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other
So that's a
question?
great.
Drop it.
I
Go ahead,
would I
please,
would
Lola.
say that when you're new to a company, whether they even have caucuses or not, I would watch. You have to watch. Your first 30 to 90 days is about learning, because you may have made an assumption that is not the norm. So that's one. That's number one. The second thing is, I recently encountered somebody who entered into my organization and has quietly, subtly started making changes. And I'm not even annoyed, because a lot of times it becomes annoying. And the way that person did it was really by they asked questions, and after asking those questions, so let's say Monday they asked questions, they went home on Monday, thought about it, drafted up something actually presentable, very articulate. This was not any kind of, it wasn't messy. By Tuesday or by Wednesday, they came back and they suggested this thing very articulately. And the suggestion obviously helped us. And so, I would say, number one, watch. But number two, if you feel like it's very important, you have to do it now, make sure that when you're presenting your case, you are not standing as I know, they don't. You are presenting your case as this is, as articulately as possible, and making sure that your suggestion is tying to actual problems that everyone feels, and you are bringing relief to those problems first before you start to change the things that you feel like somebody has made their lives work.
Thank you so very much, Lola. I know I can see Alphonsine trying to type something for you, but before that comes in, I'll just do a bit of summary of what I've learned from your session. It's been quite insightful. So you spoke about the gaps between the boardroom and where the work is done. So I call that the workroom or the workshop. Okay, so but let's keep that as so I have a line now, the gap between the boardroom and the workroom. So that needs to be closed. All right. Obviously there's always a lot of gaps. Leadership just assume that with the slides given out to everybody and that one time presentation, everybody's aligned. Um, because you rightly mentioned that your work shift from your hand to your mind. So the guys getting the work done and dirty. You need to be in the room with them from time to time. You don't just sit in your big office, your 10th floor with your coffee and expecting result without being part of the chain, because everything starts and ends with leadership, right? And transformation. I've had the privilege of driving transformation at the very highest level of enterprises. And I'm talking about organizations that have multitude of, team close to 10,000, across the nation and all of that. And the first thing is for me or for my team or my organization, if leadership is not owning that transformation, is not communicating the transformation, is not putting the face to the transformation, is dead on arrival. It's a go or no go, stage for us, and we know that this organization is not serious because organized sorry consultant externally cannot drive transformation. So when we get into any organization, we we um, we turn our team, we collapse our team, let me put it that way, into the organizational team, and we stop being iCentra. We become NAD AI, for example, and because that is where the transformation is going to happen. So if that mindset is not there, you're wasting your time. You just have a bunch of slides, lovely slides, and transformation is never going to happen. Okay. People are the capability with the capabilities are the ones that are going to get the job done. So leadership should drive transformation and be vulnerable. So you were looking at not being, you're not advising leaders to be vulnerable. I'm telling you, as a leader, I'm always very vulnerable with my team. Okay, I tell them what I don't know, and it happened, earlier on when we're trying to figure out this transform webinar. Background. I was calling and asked, just help me out. That's me. We need to be vulnerable as leaders. Okay, and to drive transformation, leaders should become continuous learners, lifelong learners. Because hey, to be honest, you can't drive what you don't understand. At the start of AI, I've done AI governance, I've done all courses because I can't be speaking transformation, when I don't have a clue. And I'll also, even if I have team members within my organization whose expertise, because hey, like you said, the work shift from your hand to your brain or to your mind. I do less of implementation these days, but I should also be, in tune with what is happening, the trend within the industry and all that. Then lastly, leadership influence. Is very important, and we need to be transparent. So, like somebody said, the caucuses, yes, you view, you understand, and you make your presentation known because hey, excellence has no hiding place. Lola, I want to thank you for your time. As you, I mean, let's take 5 more. Can we take 5 more minutes of your time because the question has finally come in here. um, Lola, when you're working on a project or strategic plan, at the end of the project, what is the best way to introduce the sustainable strategy to accommodate transparency, yes, and inclusion in the organization? Quickly answer this, then I'll release it to go. That's from our phone
All
sim.
right, so 30 seconds, real quick. My honest opinion is you don't have a sustainable strategy. There is no, there's no, there's no playbook for a sustainable strategy for what you just learned. I know there are a lot of frameworks that you could implement here and there. So any framework is as good as the other. But in actual reality, at least I have found that if you want to, so when you think about a sustainable strategy, how do I make sure this continues on and on and on? I would say, and then to accommodate transparency and inclusion in the organization, you have to make different different pit stops, like different at after 3 months, after 1 month, after 2 months, however often you need to do, you need to stop and introspect or retrospect, whatever, that during that time frame, what has happened? What have we done well? What have we not done well? What do we need to start implementing as we move forward? So my simple answer that I have found is I've worked for organizations like Lockheed Martin and GM Financial. Like, we've tried different kinds of sustainable strategy. It works for a while, but then things happen and it falls off. So I found that the actual way that, this would actually work out and play out would be when you stop at different intervals, you reassess, you make decisions, and you continue going on. So if your goal is transparency and inclusion, start well. You get to a point, you call, that's your pit stop, whatever it is, quarterly, biannually. Stop, reassess, take notes, and implement those notes. Thank you, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lola. Now you can take a bow.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll
Thank
see.
you,
I'll see you
Olivia.
again.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Estelle. My honor meeting you. All right. Bye, everyone.
All right. Let's get back into the conversation. Olivia, sorry, Estelle. You still have two more questions from my end that I'd like to still dig deeper into. So, um, of course, you've practiced agility. So, how can organization balance agility with governance without creating bureaucracy? So, then the last question I'm going to be asking you, then, Olivia, please feel free to to chip in if you have insights into that as well. Then what are the common execution challenges that prevents transformation from becoming institutionalized? Olivia, sorry, Estelle, you have the floor. Then Olivia, you can bring in insights if you do have one.
Brilliant. So just to remind everyone, we know that governance-led execution are not about only adding controls, right? It's about giving our leaders basically the confidence that they can adapt, decide, and sustain the value of the transformation program as we are, as we are in the changing world. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And then when we look at governance and bureaucracy, well, I think this is another very interesting point, isn't it? So we need to balance how we are designing governance around the different decisions, the outcome, and the learning, rather than looking at heavy process just for the sake of having processes. And I think that's what was just mentioned by Lola, when you look at those different parts. Then I think when we look at the agility aspect, well, agility does not only means that we need to put some absence to governance. We don't need to dig too much governance into the ground, right? It means that the organization need to respond a bit more intelligently as the conditions are changing and within the world that we actually living, with the AI transformation, adaptation, climate change, as I mentioned earlier today, things are changing. Yes, and looking at all those different aspects. And what I think is important as well is leaders need to bring some clarity into the ownership of governance. We need to bring evidence together. And again, I'm insisting on the risk aspect. I've been looking at systemic risk. So I think risk management needs to be part of the entire process. And then we need to look at the value and accountability of the leadership team, but also where we mention, about the delivery team, and we need to align all that together. Looking at the bureaucracy point, I think it usually grows when everything feels disconnected. You know, we're bringing more meetings, more decisions that makes no sense. And actually, this is when people start to produce more report, to feel more confident that we are less. And as I mentioned, we attend more meeting, we create more layers of chaos. You know, we try to search for approval, and organization is still not making better decisions. So what we're trying to do is to step back for a bit and understanding where we are looking at effectiveness, and how this approach can actually be helping the organization. So I love to bring questions to the room because I think that's how we are evolving, is by asking questions. So for me, is like looking at the effective, how are we effective with this approach, and is that the right one made? We're looking at the different piece of evidence that I mentioned as well before, which one are needed, because we have a lot of data points out there. You know, we are building on data nowadays, so we need to understand what is helping us to make the right decisions, and also who owns the decisions. So coming back into the accountability aspect, we need to understand as well what has changed since the last decision point was, and what are the trade-offs that we're accepting. You know, this is another interesting point to bring. And I think we mentioned that throughout the conversation, but we need to learn before we move forward. And I think that's a key element. We are willing to run before we can walk in many of organizations. And when you look at governance, the way it's designed, it needs to become the enabler of agility. You know, when the governance is enabling decisions, right? And when all actually start to start to disconnect from the purpose, well, this is when actually the executive confidence is kind of dropping, and the executive governance needs more asking, instead of asking, have we completed the process? Because, well, we're used to that, isn't it? We are focusing on the process. We should ask ourselves, are we still making the right decisions as the conditions are changing?
Thank you, Estelle. Do you have anything to add to that, Olivia?
I do.
Governance and
Yeah,
agility, yeah.
I absolutely loved all of your points. I think, Estelle, you and I are very much aligned. And all of this aligns with what I've seen personally when I ran an IT PMO. And my background is in IT. And then as an analyst at Gartner, working global CTOs. That definitely in line. One thing I can add is like a test that I like to do when I like start working or talking with anybody in any kind of organization. I want to ask like a random 5 people, like what if I see a meeting, if I see a document or an artifact, like a project management, plan, a RACI chart, like I said, a meeting, any kind of structure, anything, I want to ask 5 different people, like, why are you doing this? And if they respond with, because we should, because it's part of the process, because that's how we do it, I know that that's a red flag. What I'm looking to hear from them is, we do it because it helps us with X. It's clearing up some kind of uncertainty. It's helping unblock work, whatever it is. So go through and ask your teams, ask everybody that you work with in any company, ask everybody, especially the people closest to the work, what's this meeting about? What do you get out of this document? What do you get out of this exercise? And if you hear anything other than it helps us perform X, you're just seeing something that's governance for governance sake. It could be governance theater. It's definitely creating organizational drag. And all of that is going to stall out your transformation initiatives.
Absolutely. Thank you so very much for that very insightful contribution. I'll come back to you. Um, Olivia, I still have one more question for you. Um, what are the first steps organization should take to move from episodic transformation to transformation capability?
Great question. So I'll give you three, and they kind of compound across each other. So the first one, and these are going to be very in line with everything we've been talking about throughout the session, but the first one is clarify the strategy. So this is not the goals, not the KPIs. The strategy is your theory of how your business is going to make money and succeed. So you need to be crystal clear with your teams and everybody top to bottom on what space are we competing in? Who are we competing with? What is the value we're creating and giving to customers? And what are we trying to become? So these aren't KPIs. These aren't make the line go up. Like we all know, you got to make the line go up. It's a business, of course. You know those things. That kind of information isn't going to help teams move work forward. Like I said, they need to know where are we competing, how are we bringing value, and what are we trying to become. When that is in line, that helps you do the next one that I think is maybe one of the most important tips that I have is push decision making down as close to the work as possible. You heard me say this earlier, and leaders and companies just aren't doing this. Kind of generally, I say you can probably move decisions down 2 layers, maybe even 3 layers down. That might be really uncomfortable, especially as in a really large organization. But the people who are close to the work, the day-to-day work, they're the ones that are spotting risks. They're spotting opportunities faster than anybody else. And then they also know the capability, and they're like, okay, we've got customer feedback. We know our skill set. We see these risks, and they can come up with solutions that are more effective than the layers of organizational drag that are created when you need to create an approval meeting. Oh, let's get everybody's opinion on this. Let's make sure everybody is aligned. You don't need that many layers of alignment and approval if the strategy has been clearly communicated, and then the teams are empowered and know how to make decisions on their own to align with that strategy. It can be very uncomfortable. I see a lot of times in companies that the executive leadership team spends a lot of time together, so there's a lot of built-in trust. And so the CEO will communicate the strategy to them, and they expect kind of this like trickle down of communication. And they do like to keep a lot of control because they believe that it's a lower risk to keep major decisions up at that level with the team that they trust. What ends up happening is, using my my tech IT background, is your product managers are then being like, oh, the team will come up with like, hey, we're seeing this feedback from customers. I think I can solve it. I think, hey, maybe they've even like workshopped and demoed something, and they, bring it to the product manager, and they're like, hey, what about this? I think this solves a problem that we haven't addressed yet. That product manager shouldn't have to find time in the IT director's meeting and then their schedule, and then the IT director finding a time to meet with the C-suite and the steering committee to get approval on to work on that. That's so much organizational drag, and that's really disheartening and just like takes the wind out of the sails of the product team. Always be questioning, like, why can't we move this decision closer to the work? There's always going to be risks. There's going to be bad calls that are made, and you have to increase your tolerance for that. But those bad calls happen whether your executive steering committee is making decisions or the people closest to the work. So drive it as close to the work as possible. So my third one is create visibility across the organization. So this is a little different. You need to be communicating your strategy from bottom to top, from the executives, and then letting the teams close to the work make decisions. But then to close that loop, leaders in that middle section especially need to be focused on creating visibility across the organization. They need to be showing what the priorities are, what the outcomes are, sharing lessons learned. That visibility is what's going to improve coordination. It's going to help teams learn faster and know what other teams are working on. And it's just going to help collaboration, and reinforcing those feedback loops. So the role of leadership really effectively for continuous transformation is to make it easier for teams to make good decisions without asking permission.
Thank you so very much, Olivia. It's been so insightful. I think I've exhausted my questions for you ladies, and I'm gonna go straight to the comment room. While we do that, the technical team, I want you to please um, drop the LinkedIn profile of all the speakers in the room. Drop it in the comment section. Olivia, Estelle, and myself and Lola, drop it. Let's let people follow them, because hey, the last I checked, we had over 100 people before we had a little glitch, and I think the traffic is still building up. So each one of us here would have additional 100 followers. Please make sure you follow each and connect each of these, connect with each of the speakers. So if you have questions for Olivia, please start dropping them in the comment section. If you have comment for Estelle or myself, drop them. Let's interact and make this as as practical as possible and very interactive as possible. So hey, drop the LinkedIn profile there. Let people follow them and appreciate their work, and we'll take it off from there. So,
I
as we
actually
make it.
have something for the audience.
Okay,
Um,
fantastic.
yes, well, normally we have the audience asking us questions, but
Okay.
I wanted to have the audience to reflect basically on our conversations, because I think we kind of learn quite a lot from each other, and we seem to align in our ways of thinking, working, and seeing the future. I think in relation to transformation, agility, and governance. I think for all the leaders that are currently listening, I would like to invite two reflections. The first one will be in relation to the organization, and if so let's see this way. So where is your organization when it's transforming? Is the transformation program still being treated as a temporary program rather than a permanent capability? And then
Mm,
the second thought is, we've been mentioning, the environment is changing, we have the condition changing, we know that, everything, we have that velocity and volatility in the world right now. And for me, whether through AI or climate pressure, regulations, technology, disruption, anything basically, as the workforce is shifting in this economic uncertainty, I was wondering how quickly your organization will test whether the decisions, the assumptions, and the operating model is still valid. And I think, Olivia, we are literally aligning to this. I find this quite amusing and absolutely fascinating in the same time, because we have the same mindset, haven't we? We have different angle, but we have that common ground. And ultimately, this question matters because we are going through continuous improvement and transformation. And it's not only about the speed, and I think it's absolutely important that we mention that and we keep that in mind. It's not only about speed, it's about the ability to adapt, and with mainly, I think, clarity, bringing evidence in the room, and being accountable for that transformation program.
thank you so very much. That's very insightful. As we welcome comment from the participants and their insight as well, because hey, like you said, we're all learning, right? I've learned a lot, with you guys. For my notes is actually very full. I mean, a lot of insight from you ladies, and it's been absolutely fantastic. One thing I also want to say is there's a line that you dropped there, Estelle, which is to
Yes.
let governance be an enabler of agility instead of being a blocker. That is very, very insightful, and I think that should be um, how do I put it now, written in gold, by Estelle. I mean, if there's, we need to let governance be an enabler of agility, not a blocker. And also, I would like to say personally that I've seen that organizations treat transformation as if it's something that should happen to people, but it is something that should happen through people. Uh, there is no effective transformation without it being driven by the people themselves. So communication, like you said, let's take what do you call it, transformation closer and decision making to where the work is being done. I think a lot of executives make these mistakes to think that transformation should just happen to people because we have declared it, and it should just happen. It should happen through the people for as long as it takes the people to be able to drive the transformation. That is how long you are able to sustain transformation. So, and that is very, very, very key. And people don't really focus on the people side of transformation. There's a lot of buzz around transformation, but in my 26 years, effectively this coming month as a professional, I've and 17 years of running iCentra by the end of this year, and having driven a lot of transformation, highly complex transformation in complex environments. I've come to realize one thing, that people are actually the tool for effective transformation. It doesn't happen without them. And once also, when we talk about people, we're talking about the internal capabilities and talking about leadership imperatives. Leaders needs to understand that, hey, you need to lead transformation, and also you need to be, like Lola said, you need to be as vulnerable as possible. I mean, a lot of leaders fear being vulnerable because they are the boss. My team are on this call, even though I drive performance, but there are times when they get tired of, we need to get, come to the meeting room, have the conversation, because hey, where do we get the job done when we have to go through this? I call it alignment meeting. There has to be alignment. There has to be constant alignment with the team, because they are going to be in the room where you're not. And when you give an information to set of, let's say, five people, their understanding of each one of them, their understanding is different, and this is where the problem happens. And you talked about the drift. I have a whole segment in my book called the drifts. So this
Wow.
is where the drift, yeah, that's where the drifts happen. I'm sure I'm gonna share this book. You have the privilege of, both of you and Lola will have the privilege of reading the book before every other person. I'm gonna share it with you guys. Um,
Nice.
the
Yeah.
the
Fantastic.
enterprise, yeah, the enterprise drifts, happens, but it's not visible. It starts to it starts to drift a little bit when there is no alignment between the strategy, the people, the execution capability, which is project and programs management, or the PMO, and the value expectation, which is the product. Now, where all of these are missing, the drifts start happening, little by little bit. The executives don't see it until it collapses. Okay. And
Mm.
our ability to stay close to where the work is done is just like going to the kitchen as well. You're a master chef. You don't go away from the kitchen, even though you still have to do the celebrity, appearance. But you need to be in the kitchen where the eat is happening. Okay, where the cooking is being done. And this is where I think a lot of executives miss transformation. And for you to have that transformation as a continuous capability within your organization, you also need to be a lifelong learner. and also ensure that you move from training people to actually, workforce capability. And this is where the shift happened. I have a question here from Temitope Adenubi, who said, it's been informative. Mine is not a question, but a summary of transformation. Sorry, or summary that transformation involves people and management at the elms, should ensure that transformation happens. Also, transformation should be treated as continuous phase, and not just once, and it will
Yeah.
be gradual and be able to have measurable impacts. I absolutely agree with you. We're happy to welcome more insights from you guys. Like I said, it's cross learning experience. If we knew it all, nobody here would even come to speak or to want to be a speaker at the webinar. And I'm also very aware that the crop of people that have spoken about this topic today are world class, by virtue of my interaction and alignment with them. While we're waiting for more questions and comments. Um, there are some offers from, I know when you come to our webinar, there's always offers, freebies, and things to give away. I don't know if the learning team are here to just let me know when you're ready to do that, so that you can take it off from here. Um,
Can I jump in while we're looking? Your analogy with restaurant and strategic drift, I love that because if you're the restaurant owner, and it's, a Saturday night, you might trust your team. You might, they know the identity of the restaurant. You have a reputation already built, and you trust your team to maintain that. But if you're not in the kitchen enough, and if you're not checking in enough, what can happen is maybe you don't have, your suppliers weren't able to give you the, your specialty food. Maybe your
yeah,
like famous entree. Your chefs are going to have to be back there and making decisions, trade-off decisions, just like Estelle was saying. And you need to be able to trust them, and they need to be so aligned with you that they can adjust. They could be like, all right, the menu's got to shift tonight because we're forced to. There's so many technical, when you're working in the business, there's so many issues and workarounds that you have to deal with every day. So you need to trust the team that they're going to make the decisions that's not going to tank your restaurant's reputation. And it's maybe even like if maybe they come up with a new dish that's even better than you ever thought of. And so
absolutely.
I love that analogy. I think that that's fantastic because if you're out of touch, those chefs, and the team could make continuous decisions that are misaligned with your vision. And then all of a sudden you go from like, a Cajun seafood house and to serving all vegan food. And you're like, how did this happen? I just, I
Happened,
didn't
yeah.
check in with you guys for 6 months because I thought you had it. And now we're a whole new identity. I love that analogy.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much for that insight. One thing I also want to chip into this conversation is that it's okay for teams to bring innovation, right? Just like you mentioned. But again, we should be at that point where we're able to adopt what can work and align. And the whole job of leadership, as a matter of fact, from the portfolio point of view, is being able to align priorities of the organization. And that is where there has to be a connection between the boardroom. And now I'll call it the war room, not the workroom again, because these are the guys that are, that are going to be in the war room, I mean, getting the job done. So that alignment is very important. The team should have psychological safety to experiment, like you said, bringing their ideas to the table, but it must be aligned so that you don't have, too many spices getting into the pot and it spoils. But yeah, you can experiment, but that alignment is very, very important. Matt said here a lot of great points, too many to call out. I love Olivia's point of being in the room where the work is done. This is really so important and very much overlooked when decisions are being taken. Olivia, take your flowers. You've done absolutely well, as well as Estelle. So please,
Thank you.
the learning team, let me know when you're ready for your offers, because we've actually done a good justice to these. Are they doing typing something out? We'll get. So when you have a situation where people are putting more of comments instead of questions, that means a lot of learning has happened, and they're just reiterating what they have learned. So absolutely, I want to thank you, ladies. Thank you, Olivia and Estelle, again for my doing. So Loam, are you on the call?
Well, if we are waiting, I maybe add one or two little comment, and again bringing some ideas into the room. So I think one of the common challenge is organization often build transformation on momentum, all of it about excitement, and unfortunately that brings a temporary program or a structure, and then therefore it's like not really stable. And then therefore I think what is important is to fully embed basically the capability into the operating model, and therefore that will assist in mobilizing the work stream, the steering group, the dashboard that we have discussed with KPIs and performance, anything that look efficient, and ultimately looking at how to bring that again to the table about the behavior, decisions, right, and the data discipline that we kind of slightly mention. And yeah, I think becoming transformation needs to become a leadership routine and a learning loop, right? And I do believe that organization that will thrive over the next years will be that simply are the one that transform once. So from now on, you keep transforming.
Thank you. I promised that I wasn't gonna do um, a presentation because my job was just to just do moderation here, but I'm tempted to share this with the world. This is something called continuous transformation, a new way of thinking from our team. So we realize that transformation is falling way too fast or failing too fast where it mattered most, and this has to do with a lot of strategy decks meeting execution gaps. So what is the solution? See where it breaks down. Strategy is not translating into execution. Projects is not giving us value. Governance is not giving us speed. Capability is not giving us performance. Is not equal to performance. So the shift is moving from transformation as an initiative to continuous transformation. So you can see the 4P alignment framework, which I was talking about in my earlier conversation about where the drifts happens. And this is where continuous alignment needs to happen between portfolio. This 4P alignment frameworks was developed by iCentra in our new way of thinking. Um, Next is the impact life cycle, which focuses on the insights, the model, the protection, how to protect, activate capabilities, and transform. I didn't intend to show this, but again, so our thinking is that an integrated system, not a sequence anymore, where workforce capability, people layer is enforced, governance framework, transformation lifecycle, and enterprise alignment happens. So this is the four pillars of transformation and one transformation system that we've built at iCentra, where we have our enterprise transformation, whether it is agile, digital transformation, organizational, and organizational transformation, cybersecurity, and GRC. This is where governance sits. We have strategy and execution, where you do all the whole of strategy management, change management, PMO solutions, and advisory. Then learning and talent, which is very important, where workforce capability happens. Um, so this is us at a glance. Maybe I replace this with what was supposed to come from learning. So this is iCentra, 16 years plus of execution, over 1,000 people impacted. Sorry, 10,000 people impacted globally, with our presence across three regions and over 1,000 solutions delivered to date. So sectors where we work cut across public, private, and non. So if there is need for transformation, enterprise transformation, and these are clients that we've actually developed, deliver transformation to. So um, transformation only happens and becomes very, very effective when there's an alignment between strategy, which is the portfolio, the people, and project, which is the execution capability. And so I have questions. So Loam, are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I yield the floor to the learning team if they have something for you guys. Freebies, they always have freebies. Um, Loam, you take it away from here.
Okay, thank you so much for that, sir. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Esther. It was such a wonderful session. I'm a feminist. Anytime we see women, we know we're going to have a wonderful time. Thank you so much for all the nuggets. We've been able to grasp a lot. We've been able to get a lot from you. So thank you, thank you, thank you for always partnering with iCentra to deliver value. So from the learning team, as our CEO said, we always have freebies for you. We always have good things for you. On the screen, you can see our July calendar. We have our courses that will run both in Nigeria, Africa, and also North America. So the good news is that for everybody who is on this call, for the next 48 hours, you're going to be receiving a 10% discount on every course that is going to run this July. So if you register for every course on our July calendar, you're going to be enjoying a 10% discount. The team is going to drop the code on the group just so that it is only for the people who make their presence or who honored us with their presence at this webinar. So in the chat, we're going to be dropping the course registration link as well as the coupon code for 10% discount. It only lasts for 48 hours. And trust me, the last time people were reaching out to us and it was gone. So do not waste time this time around. Make sure that within the next 48 hours, you're able to use your coupon code and get hooked on any of these courses. The truth is that for you to be a true transformation expert, as Lola said, there's the place for you to learn and build your capability. So make sure that you register, you use your coupon code, and you get one of these courses. Thank you all again for making our time to be here, and I'm going to yield the floor back to Mr. Propayechu.
Thank you so very much, Loom, for generously providing that to the participants. By the way, Loom leads our learning and talent domain, and she's always very generous, especially when there are women on the call, to ensure that there are freebies to go around. So there are questions here that I wanted to quickly take. Okay, the coupons have been shared. The speaker's profile has also been shared. I've been seeing a lot of connection requests from my own end. So okay, so I think you already started answering the question, Olivia, in the comment section. That's very proactive. That's interesting. So if there are no other questions, we might as well just take your parting shots from each of the speakers as we try to bring these to a close. Parting shot, please.
Yeah, I'll start. My parting, so we've talked about this several times, and thank you to the learning team for offering discounts to people. I think I would say, like, if you're a leader or you're trying to be a leader, if you work in any kind of business, organizational learning is just critical. Learn how to communicate in different ways, learn how to create different presentations, learn how to reprioritize amongst a team that probably doesn't align, and maybe their incentives are really different. Learn increasing like your emotional intelligence. If you connect with me, and I hope you do, on LinkedIn, you'll see that a lot of my research that I've done, especially at Gartner, was about how to improve decision-making quality and speed by increasing your not just technical understanding and operational understanding, but your emotional understanding of how people think and how they operate, and really understanding how driven people are by the incentives that they're given and the motivations that they have. That's really going to help you. So if you're looking for organizational learning, of course, learn AI. It's becoming quickly a baseline for most all of our jobs, but also like think a little outside the box. I'm a big proponent of, I read history books, I read philosophy books, I read how to code. I read kind of anything that helps me understand the people that I'm working with better, maybe where they're thinking, where they're coming from. And it also helps me just look at problems from a lot of different angles. And that's probably one of the best things you can do, is just invest in organizational learning, learn how to experiment, learn how to run pilots, learn how to continuously give feedback, get comfortable continuously giving and receiving feedback. So that's definitely probably number one tip. I don't know if Stell, if you have.
Yes, well, I can add. Yeah, well, I can add a couple of things here. So obviously, for me, there are a few keywords. One is curiosity. The second one is explore. And I think another one is maybe expose yourself in different ways. And I think, Olivia, I feel like we've been connected forever because we kind of align. I start you start a sentence and I finish it, so which is quite absolutely fascinating. I think for me, when you look at all those different aspects, I think it is important that you put yourself out there, as you mentioned. The world is changing. We have a lot of opportunities out there beyond reporting activity, let's be honest, right? I think if you have a bit of sense of humor, is more than the data. We have different things, as you mentioned. There is books out there. There is different ways of learning through webinars. And let's be honest, let's try to meet each other. Don't forget your neighbors. Don't forget the organizations that are around you. Just just pop in, on the street, just look around, just don't forget that because we are living in a virtual world, we still are human and we are in 3Ds, right? Remember that we are, the person, and everyone that receive a smile, I think is a connection that starts. And from all that, being uncertain entering a room, well, that can give you, so much sense when you come out of it. And I think, that's all we start. That's how we connect in business. That's how we connect in the real life. And when we look at that, we are questioning, is that model still valid? Well, yes, it is indeed. It is indeed. And even though we are living in an uncertain world where the economics are changing, I think it's helpful for each other to still understand that we are all beings that are building on capabilities, transformation, and intelligence.
Yeah, I would add to that. Right now I hear a lot of something is inevitable. This change is inevitable. Don't want to get too specific, but we're all hearing, oh, it's inevitable. Get with the program. It's inevitable. I would absolutely always challenge that. And I say that the only thing that's inevitable tomorrow is what you work on and build today. And keep that in mind. So when somebody else is telling you this is inevitable, and it doesn't quite ring with maybe your goals, maybe your perceptions, your reality, that's okay. That person has a motivation behind what they're saying, and that's okay for them as well. That doesn't mean that it's fact for you. And if that's what they want to work on today to build tomorrow, that's great. But that doesn't mean that you need to do that. So trust yourself, get to know, how you think and feel, and remember that anybody giving you information that is black and white, it has to be this way, they have a motivation for doing so. And like I said, don't try and change their motivation. That's probably pretty ingrained and goes a lot deeper than anything you could ever try to accomplish with them, but don't let it affect you. Just remember that the only thing inevitable tomorrow is what you work on and build today.
I find it fascinating, Olivia. We could go on and on, don't you think? I think we are just, as I mentioned, finishing our sentences, and it's incredible how we are aligning into that vision of transformation. And I think transformation, as you mentioned, is part of who we are, even though things are accelerating around us. I think we are willing to reduce bureaucracy, which is something that is always being, an evidence that, processes are in place, but doesn't mean that we have the accountable body in the room, unfortunately. And I think through that learning process, I think looking at those different layers of approval, maybe looking at who owns those decisions, is kind of confirming the final flow, isn't it? Looking at those different directions we are willing to get through, and finally reaching that that position or that vision that we made of. And I think we mentioned that many times throughout the conversation, is a team effort, not only the individual effort. I think everyone needs to be part of the process, understanding every single one of us as the intent to be part of that journey. And I think stronger together we are stronger, right? So that's
Thank you,
that's
Estelle.
where I believe. Yeah.
Thank you, Estelle. Absolutely. In closing this, I would have loved to put this question to the panel, but I'll drop it as a question to everybody. You can drop your question in your in the comment section, or you can take it back to your organization. If you could recommend one capability every organization should invest in over the next 5 years, what would that be and why? Just everybody can answer that question. I don't need it to come from the panel. The panelists and the speakers can also drop their comments. Now, this is a takeaway question that we need to, we need to go home with. In closing, we have realized and also learned that transformation is no longer a project. It's not a standalone initiative. It is a mindset, just like agility is. It is a continuous capability that organizations need to build. My notes is full of insights, nuggets. I don't want to go over them again because after each speaker's conversation and interaction, I've been able to bring these nuggets and those insights and my notes, bring it out. However, I want to thank you for your time spending this with us today. We've been on this call for 2 hours, 2 amazing hours.
Wow.
Yes, with more than 95% of the people that started this conversation with us are stayed true. So if you're looking out for your PDUs, emails will be sent to you afterwards. You can grab that for PMI PDUs. And also, there's going to be a link to this webinar. This video of this is going to be on YouTube, on our YouTube, and we're going to send a link to the speakers and to everybody that are part of this. We want to thank you again for your time and your commitment. See you every last Thursday of the month, where we come together again to come and transform our mindsets with new insights and learning. And that is why we call it Transform Webinar. It has nothing to do with continuous transformation. That is just a name that we have chosen, for this webinar over the past few years that we've been studying, because true transformation starts with people, not through people. Thank you so very much for your time, and God bless. Let's keep the conversation online. And please follow Olivia, follow Estelle, amazing global speakers, transformation leaders, and we really, really appreciate each and every one of you ladies, together with Lola, who has stepped out of the room before now, and a depth of gratitude to the iCentra team, Loom, and the team, and as who else is there? So many people behind the scenes to mention that put this together. Thank you so very much for your time.